Welcome to Commedia. I'm just playing with y'all, just joking. It's funny, like sometimes we watch those things and they get a little bit awkward and people are just like, I'm just watching it for the train wreck, but no. Student Activity Conference, UIL, and I am sorry that you have to deal with like YouTube channels, YouTube videos to have to do this, but the pandemic, we don't need to say anything else more about it. But we're going to get through this, all right? And if there's anybody that can get through it, it's people with imagination. And we all got imagination, all right? Theater people. My name is Raymond Blanchard. I'm the theater director at Crosby High School. And my topic is Commedia. When we got the email about the topics that are going out, I saw Commedia and I was like, oh, yes, that is so cool. And I'm going to tell you why I like Commedia so much. And this session is going to be about Commedia. It's going to be a conversation. Well, not really a conversation. It's going to be me talking about it. But then also I have some students that are going to they send in videos about what they liked about Commedia. And it's Commedia dell'arte. And I know we're from Texas, so Commedia dell'arte. But it is Commedia, from in an Italian way. But I'm not going to go ahead and even attempt that, because I don't want to offend anyone. But I want to touch on why I love Commedia so much, all right? And I really do hope that you watch all of this video, and I hope, and my whole purpose, my whole objective is to make more people aware about this art form, this theater, because it's very special to me, all right? And I fully believe that it changed my life, and I don't know. So this is where it started, okay? Commedia dell'arte, and I have to do this really quick, folks, because it's one thing to go ahead and record these videos, all right, and then but when you're seeing yourself, I'm like, I get it. I mean, y'all are having to look at me right now, and I know I've aged a lot. I'm lack of hair, and I have no neck, and my nose is so I can't stand seeing myself. So I'm putting another thing in front of it. Okay, page. All right, so Commedia dell'arte, 17th century Italian Renaissance. Okay. I'm going to touch more about the history in a little bit, okay? But I want to tell you what it is that I liked about it. I'm in junior college, and our director is like, we're going to do a Commedia show. And I was just like, okay, because I didn't know what Commedia was because we didn't touch on it in high school. And I was a student assistant, and they said, we're going to make the masks. I was like, okay, masks, all right. And I just thought, paper mache, or put some stuff together, But no, what they did was they brought in this leather, they brought in this plaster, we had to make molds of our face, okay, the people that were wearing masks, okay? And then we got leather, and they're like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to soak the leather. We soaked it for a day, I think a day or two. And then we got the leather, and we had to stretch it around this mold, and we had this bone, it was actual bone, and we had to sculpt and mold the leather around the mold. And I cut myself 20 times. It was painful. I had my hands all taped up and everything. It was just looked like Michael Jackson back in the day, because his fingers used to be taped anyway, or Frankenstein. All right, but yeah, so we made these masks, all right, and then we had these costumes for the stock characters. We're going to talk about stock characters in a little while too. And we started acting, and they were like, no, you got to do more, you got to push it more, you got to push it more. And I'm like, what is going on? That was my first time with Commedia dell'arte, and I played the role of Pantalone. And I was just like, after it was all said and done, I loved it, all right? But during the process, I hated it. I hated the mask, I hated this, I hated, it was a lot of work, okay? Then I ended up going to the Alley Theater. It's a playhouse in Houston, and they did As You Like It, okay? And it was awesome. I walk in, sit down, and they have all these statues of these costumes and characters on the sides, on the wings. And I'm like, oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. And I just thought, part of the decor, that's it for the play. And so we're watching the play, okay? And then all of a sudden, you start seeing people pop in, going in there and and I'm like, oh my God. These cats, these people were standing there for 20, 30 minutes, all right? Perfectly still. And they go down there and they do their thing, and I'm like, this is amazing. So that was that. That was that part, all right? A couple of months later, all right, King Stag comes to the alley. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go see this because it was a Commedia show. So I'm like, all right. And Julie Taymor did the costumes. Julie Taymor. Um, Costumes were cool. Commedia characters were on. And then all of a sudden you have puppets. I love puppets. I love working with puppets. I don't know what happened. I never grew out of Sesame Street, all right? Puppets, 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 Muppets, puppets, all of them, all right? It was amazing, okay? So then, you know, everything I start seeing, I can't help but like start thinking about like comedy. I think about comedy. I think about like the way things work. I think about the threes. I think about the pratfalls. I think about the shtick. You know, I think about all of the, they call it lousy, okay? And it's all comedy. And the more that you learn about it, the more that I thought about it, we wouldn't have The Office. We wouldn't have any sitcom, you know, any sitcom at all. Saturday Night Live, none of that, all right? Because Commedia started with just like a troupe of actors that travel around making money, you know, and doing improvisation. You know, they would get like a storyline, but then they would just go for it, all right? And if you have seen The Office and the outtakes, you can see how Rainn Wilson and Steve Carell, they make up their own lines as they're going on, you know, and it's just cool to think that that's the way they do it. And Saturday Night Live too, you know, they run with these skits, you know, and they have these stock characters. Okay, we'll get more about the stock characters. Okay, so we wouldn't have anything. We wouldn't have Will Ferrell movies, Adam Sandler movies, you know, nothing like that if it wasn't for Commedia dell'arte. All right, and all the pratfalls. Okay, um, so that's a big reason why I love it. I use Commedia during our season, like every year. Every year we do it, and every year we compete with it. We compete at the Renaissance, and I just think it's a perfect tool to learn, to teach, because you have to overact, and you have to bring out these characters because you have masks and you have to really project, and even you're doing the facial reactions with the mask on, and I think it just makes you a better character. Okay, so whenever I think about comedy, I think about Commedia. Okay, we're gonna get through the process and talk about the process in a little while, and but I wanted to just to let you know, like, you know, why it's so important to me, you know, and I think the other parts is like I use the Truffaldino character a lot. He's like the main jokester, you know, the my go-to, you know, and I can't help but like think about, you know, in this time and age, especially right now, you know, things are just crazy. You know, things are nuts, and people are sad, and people are depressed, people are stuck at home. There's people dying, you know, and to help me get through the days, I actually think about Truffaldino and think about the different ways that he would interact, you know, even with like the presidential debate, you know, when I'm watching the debates, I'm thinking about like Truffaldino popping in and out, you know, it just kind of makes my day. And so that's why I think about, you know, how Commedia changed my life, and it's comedy, and I can't help but think about the over exaggeration of it all, and I think about like the stock characters and like how they would handle all the daily life right now. So the other thing about Commedia is like you can, anyone can write a show about Commedia, you know, just follow the rules. There's really no rules, but except, you know, the stock characters and the lovers, you know. So we're going to get to that process now. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the performance side of it, and the stock characters, and a little bit about the history. All right, I'm trying to make this as quick as possible because I know that nobody really wants to watch a long video. I mean, everybody just looks to see about, is it 2 minutes or is it 3 minutes, you know, and what do they have time for? But please continue, and let's learn about like the performance aspect of it all and the characters and a little bit about the history, and then we'll talk about I'll let the students go ahead and talk about it. All right, so this will be the first part, right? And this, so you can just break it up in case you want to go ahead and like go grab a drink, or like go look at something, or go roll your eyes, or you know, like look at this and like, what is this guy talking about, you know? I'm just kidding, you know. So yeah, so there you go. All right, thank you. All right, so now a little bit about the history, okay, about Commedia, and I'm not going to get too detailed oriented or anything because You can look it up online. I mean, honestly, I mean, there's so much out there. And but what's kind of crazy is like I say that there's so much out there, but the research that I've done in Commedia over all these years, there's really not a lot out there, and the stories vary, from different professors and different writers and whatnot. So I find that kind of interesting. Um, for me, what I like to think about is the way it started. I mean, here you have these actors, these people, these people that need jobs, okay, and they're going from town to town in a wagon with their props, minimal props, and their costumes. So you're going town to town, and think about it. I mean, they're gypsies. They're gypsies. Oh, there you go. Share gypsies, tramps, and thieves. No, 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 no. It's a song, but they're going around from city to city, and they've got their canister, their bucket, so the people can put money in there, and then they divvy it up. I find that cool, and there's nothing different than today, even with like concerts, how they roll to each city, they do their thing. But I like that idea. To me, I mean, I probably romanticize it a little bit more than what the actual, really is about, because they're dirty, they're grimy, and no shower or anything like that. And I like that idea, So this was going on in the 17th, 15th, 16th century, in Italy, and they they go from town to town, all right, and they've got these characters or whatnot, okay, and I'm looking over my notes as I'm talking to y'all, okay, and so they've got like music, they got like dance, they got their dialogue, and remember when we said that, they give a certain like idea of the play, and then they go out there and they do it, and people are standing around the market and whatnot, okay, and that's one of the reasons why I love performing at the Renaissance, and I love performing outside, because then there's nothing that beats that. When you got actors that are outside, like the way they did it back in the day, it's hot. They've got these costumes, and there's all these there's just ambient sound. People talking. At Renaissance, the fair contest, they have cannons going off. They have other things, and I always tell my actors, I mean, you've got to catch these people's the audience. You got to capture their attention. You got to do this. And when you lock them in, you got to get them to stay locked in. So I mean, and that's the way they had to do it back in the day. To get money. I mean, they had to be good because everybody doesn't want to give away their money just to give it away. So think about that. Okay. They got different Italian dialects, from different different countries, I mean, different regions of the area of the country, and it was all just out in the open, Um, Commedia was they influenced a lot. Like I said, they wouldn't have had The Office. They wouldn't have had like Steve Carell, doing the improvisation in The Office. They wouldn't have any kind of sitcom. The Pratfalls, Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin. You need to look up all these people. The Stooges, Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy. These are like older folks. But think about anybody with physical comedy. Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey. I mean, all of these cats. I mean, this is what they do is from like the commedia form. Um, yeah, so think about that. Now let's go back to their props. Okay, their props. They just had like little, like tables here, and they had like a slapstick. They got two pieces of wood. They put a spring on it, or they made a spring, and it was just a slapstick that they used. That's like the biggest one, and they had their their trunks and whatnot, anything that they could use, buckets and whatnot, and the cool thing about it is like there's no elaborate sets or anything for commedia shows, like the authentic, real, like traveling, and everything was done on the streets, everything was done on the road, all right, everything was just very minimal, okay, and I think that's cool when you're able to capture someone's attention with just nothing, with just very little. I mean, you're working your butt off, and I don't know, it's awesome. That's one of the things. It's hard, but it's just fun. They improvised a lot of comedy. They improvised their lines. And they responded to each other, and it's kind of like the way Saturday Night Live works. You could see them how like they're reading each other. They're like, okay, I'm about to go and do this. And sometimes they rehearsed like the shtick, the routine, and like we do a lot of like cartwheels and tumbles and falls, and people jumping on each other's back, and everything has to be choreographed so well, or else somebody can get hurt, right? And you don't want that at all. And my favorite thing, and I always tell my actors, I mean, okay, y'all, it's time to do some commedia, So they know that they have to start building up their muscle. They have to start running because they're going to be doing a lot of like they have to do cardio, okay, because they're going to have to be doing like a lot of long scenes when they're like just tired and long-winded, and they got to deliver their lines. And my favorite thing to do is to get like a small person that looks really really weak, and they're able to carry a big person because that's just funny, all right. To me, it's funny. So that's what I like to do, and there's just everything is so physical about commedia. Um, the masks, they force the actors to project, okay, and to show their emotions through their body. So like here you have, somebody sad, and on their face you can be like, you know, but like you cover up that face, and then what do you do? What are you gonna do? So you got to show them, to her blank face, and it's just like, So you go ahead and drop your body so many times, and then you know they it's the stock characters against the lovers, and we're gonna go into the stock characters, which will be our next thing. But there's so much physicalness in Commedia that, to me, people might call me out. Your teacher might say he's wrong, but to do an authentic Commedia show, you have to have masks. You have to have these elaborate costumes, and what I mean by elaborate is just true to the character. Okay, they don't have to be like fancy. They don't have to. We've done. We make our own costumes, all right, and sometimes we make it just out of canvas from Home Depot, okay, and it's just gotta have physicalness. You have to have these pratfalls. You have to have this jumping on one another. And everything has to be timed out. Even the stuff that looks like it's an accident, that's not an accident. So it's a lot of work. Okay, so let's talk about the stock characters. Okay, the characters in Commedia, they had them to where they're like fixed, like social types. All right, they were like full of show men's, or they were servants, or military officers, and some of them were like were not really, but they were acting like it. But like you got these star characters, like the one of the main guys is Pantalone, okay, and he's from Venice, and he's a merchant, and he's just really greedy and stingy, and he's got like this beard, very long gray beard, and he usually has like this red hat or red like scarf bandana type of thing, long red. He's always in red, all right, in a long red coat, and he always has like a money pouch, or he has money bags. And then you have his, I don't know what I would like to think is his arch nemesis, would be the doctor, the Doctoria, all right, and we've always used Dr. Lombardi. Okay, he's in Servant. I like Servant. So Carlo Goldini was the one that wrote Servant of Two Masters. He wrote a couple of other uh, Commedia plays, but that's one of my go-tos. I love Servant of Two Masters. I never get tired of it. And Arlecchino is he's a servant, mischievous servant from Bergamo. Okay, and either plays will have Arlecchino or Arlecchino, or they will use Truffaldino. Okay, and he's like the servant, and he gets himself into a lot of trouble. He's kind of like what was the Charlie Chaplin, the Little Tramp. It's kind of like that kind of character. And sometimes like Will Ferrell plays like a Truffaldino type of character, where he's just like a bumbling idiot, you know. Um, so Arlecchino, is most famous. Right? He's like an acrobat. He's the one in Truffaldino, and he's like childlike, and his mask is half, and it. Some people say that it looks like cat-like, but I don't know. It's just like, and he has diamonds. These characters always have like diamonds all over their costume, all right. And let me tell you, we paint the canvas for that, and I think I have a picture. Hope the picture shows up. And we actually paint each diamond to go into that to his costume. All right, and then we have Brigella. Okay, and Brigella is like a servant. Well, not like a servant, but he owns like his own restaurant. He's a kind of a cook. All right, and he's roguish, and he's sophisticated, and but at the same time he's like a cowardly. Kind of like a villain. All right, but who'll sell out. Who just always sells out for money, and he. He's in Servant. He's always just like the sidekick for Truffaldino, and just always there. Um, and the way that he walks, he kind of walks like Yosemite Sam, and I don't know if I can be able to see if you're gonna be able to see this or not, but you're not gonna be able to see it too well. But we have him to where you really can't tell that well. But what it is I used Yosemite Sam as an idea for Brigella to how Brigella walks. National Theater on YouTube. National Theater. The professor there has a whole series of how to do commedia dell'arte characters. Um, when I've reviewed that so many times, I learned from that. So I suggest you go ahead and type in National Theater, Commedia dell'arte, and you can see incredible training on how to do these stock characters. Um, so then this is kind of just like a taste what we're doing right here, so that you can think about it and go with it, all right, and learn more about it, all right? Because I don't care what anybody says, if somebody can teach you how to do things and you can like, oh, well, but it's when you have a desire to go ahead and want to learn, and that's when you absorb it, and that's when you're just like, oh, God, and that's when it means something to you, when you work for it, all right? All right, off my soapbox, all right? So that's Brigella, all right? Then we go to the captain, all right? It's a caricature of a prisoner, a soldier, bold, swaggering, and all of these characters have like these walks to them, all right? And then there was like Dr. Lombardi, who I talked about, pompous, and he's just arrogant, and he just thinks like he's right all the time. He gets infused with Pantalone a lot. And Pantalone, I told you about, was the Venice merchant. Okay, and then we have these characters that are kind of like clownish. All right, they're like they do a lot of the laissez, and we have like Smeraldina, who is like a servant also, and who Chuffaldino always like falls in love with, and she may have different names, different names with Smeraldina, and then you have the lovers. Okay, the lovers, they range from different. They don't wear masks. Lovers don't wear masks, and they go by several names: Florindo, Clarice, Silvio. Uh, Beatrice, I said Beatrice. Yeah, there's so many different names that these lovers go to, and they carry off different storylines. Right? There's usually 2 or 3 storylines that go in through the play. It's just so much fun. Let's go into talk about the costumes. I know I mentioned already about the costumes with the servants. Truffaldino and Smeraldina. They have like diamonds on their diamond shaped colors on their costumes, and this kind of shows like the relationship. All right, so Brigella usually wears like a camel-like color with green on there, and then the lovers are just very, fancy lace and ruffles. Uh, some take part in like military style costumes, and then the doctor's all in black, looking like a professor. And mask. Now the stock characters, they're the ones that have the masks, and some people go with different colored masks. We usually go brown or black, and I think sometimes the colored mask can be a little bit too distracting. Okay, even though it's all costume and mask, but that's it. And then the music, we try to use live music with all of our stuff, but the music's important for like the slide whistle. And for the sound effects, we use slide whistle, anything we can get our hands on. We've used coconuts, we've used xylophones, we've used just clapping hands. Anything we get our hands on to make a sound, and we never want to try to make the sound the same. So like the hits. Like if you have a different hit. Um, I should do that. I should do a whole demonstration on like sounds, because like I taught my students how to do it, and then they taught themselves, and then we just go around watching different things on YouTube or other plays, and we're like, oh, that'd be such a cool sound for like if a horse was to get like hit, or like and so anything you can come up with. I don't think there's any right or wrong. It's just, I think the only wrong part would it be not doing it full on. I think that's the only thing about commedia. If it's not full on, then there's something wrong. All right. So that covers a lot about the costumes and the props and some of the characters, and about the history of it. 17th century Italian Renaissance period, and then Shakespeare took some stuff from it. Everybody took some stuff from it. Moliere has some good commedia. Um, it's just a lot of, I don't know. It's just kind of cool. I just like it a lot. Um, Now we're going to go on to producing this show, and then we're going to hear from students on what their thoughts were. Okay, so thanks for sticking around so far. Now, the performance part of it all in the rehearsal process. Um, the rehearsal process for commedia shows is, and I touched on it a little bit. You have to gain strength because you're going to be supporting other people. You're going to be lifting. Your core really has to be like strong, because some of the things that we like to do is we like to pretend you have a phone, and then I'd like for you to be able to like balance yourself on one foot and then pretend like this is the heaviest thing in the world, miming, pantomime, that all comes into effect. Everything that you learn in theater, you use in commedia. Um, the carrying of people, the twisting, and it's rigorous, and it's hard, and but it's fun, and especially if you got a strong core, and if you got like, and it takes a lot of self-discipline, because a lot of times we have someone stay in a position for like 5 minutes, like a statue in the back, and then they move out, and we take the first time I went ahead, and something that I do is I show a lot of Looney Tunes, I show a lot of cartoons, and one of the first groups that I had, I went ahead and I said, hey, look at this, and this is the way that I would like for you to pose. And there was one scene where the eyes were popping out of their head, and they're like, you want us to do that? And I was like, yes, I want you to do that. Because you can't do it physically, but you're going to learn, you're going to figure out a way to make it almost like that, and to give an idea of that. And that's what we want. That's how it's funny. And then it amazes them after they do it and after they can do it. So students are incredible. That's why I love teaching, because students will come up with better ideas than directors most of the time, and in this theater, that's what we let it happen. you know what's your idea, what's your idea, what's your idea, come on, let's use them. Picasso, I think it was Picasso that said that every good artist borrows, every great artist steals. So we're stealing from life, we're stealing from everything. So we use it. um so Looney Tunes, so look at these next slides right here. I mentioned how I use Yosemite Sam's walk, for Regella. Uh, I go through all these different Looney Tune characters to help and give them examples of like how the Commedia stock characters are to be used. Pantalone walks like a crab from side to side. The doctor carries his stomach around. And look at this lean that Daffy does. I mean, that's just like confrontational. That just helps. And that's what I mean by the core. You can imagine somebody, their left foot forward, right foot back, and that neck. You got to stretch that neck out as long as you can. I mean, this is one of the ones that I love, and it's just so much fun, and it's fun using cartoons as a resource, because at home I'm watching them, and they're like, "What are you doing, Dad?" "I'm working." And look at this pose. Look at that. And then this lean right here for another confrontation. And this is another pose of just like of being in the air. I like the way, I like to try to get our actors to be still like that while they're in the air. And right here, another one, confrontation and just being silly, and just using these exaggerated cartoon characters to try to be exactly like them. And it's a task and it's a chore, but it's so much fun. My goodness. We've had a lot of laughs, and that's the cool thing about rehearsals, is like you've been working with somebody for so long, you're like, well, if they've been working for you, how are you going to make them laugh? If they break character, then you're doing a great job. Okay, so, but then the other person, you got to be true to form and not break character whenever we're doing a scene, especially when we're competing. And this character right here, look at this lean right here, and look at the hands and the fingers. That's just, it's classic. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I just enjoy it. Like I get caught up in it and thinking about like when we're gonna do the next show, and we are gonna try to do another show, another comedy show during this whole pandemic thing. But it's so much fun. And then this is another thing that we think about for props. You know, looking at a rocket on there, you know, coyote on top, being tied to something, and that is just classic. Just help. We use a lot of signs in ours too. Right now, we're about to wind down, and I wanted you to hear some what my students thought about Commedia. You know, I went the pros and cons, and that's all I told them. I said, listen, can you send me a video if you want about the pros and cons in doing Commedia dell'arte, performing in it, and also from the tech side. We have a stage manager that's going to give his ideas and then what he thinks about it, and it's true to form. I mean, there's no kidding around about this. So I hope that y'all enjoy that part. Right. So here are the students. We have Grace Kay, who is a sophomore, and then Joshua John Lewis, who's going to be majoring in choir, musical theater, in choir and theater, and Joseph Blanchard, stage manager, and then we have Catriona Lockhead, all right, who's going to give you her take also. So here they are.
Hi, my name is Grace Kay. I'm in the 10th grade and I acted in Commedia. Pros and cons. A con would definitely be the masks, obviously, and I think that's kind of ironic with the current state that we're in. But it was really hot, and it was also very hard to project to the crowd with that on. So that was definitely hard, and it took time. I don't even think I ever got used to it ever. Another con would be in the beginning. It took me a little bit of time to really like warm up to getting so dramatic and so animated with those characters. But then once I finally got there, it was really fun to be like out there. So it's like a pro and con in itself. Another pro would be the little bits we would make, and we really got to have fun with it and stuff like that. The costumes also added a lot of character to the show and made it very entertaining. So yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Joshua John Lewis. I am 17 years old and I am currently a senior at Crosby High School. So yeah, I go to Crosby High School. I'm a fourth year actor. And today I'm just going to talk about Commedia dell'arte. So the last show we just worked on was entitled The Servant of Two Masters. Some of you may have seen it. We brought it to one act. The Servant of Two Masters. So what this show is about is a character named Truffaldino. I played Truffaldino in the show. The show is about Truffaldino and his two masters. So I'll get to that. Truffaldino has his one master. And back then it's really about being loyal to that master, right? It's a big thing if you go and like try and serve somebody else. That's exactly what Truffaldino did. So Truffaldino's like this hustler, right? He's this guy on the street that's, can I get this money? Trying to get this money wherever he can. So he goes out and finds another master. That's a big deal. When you find another master, you're being unloyal to your original master. And the whole show is Truffaldino trying to keep the two masters apart. Why? Because the two masters are really lovers, but Truffaldino doesn't know that. They're lovers and they're trying to find each other the whole show. They're trying to get to each other. Truffaldino's doing everything he can to keep them apart while also engaging in his own love life. So that's the last show I worked on. I did work on some other characters and I'll talk about those later. But The Servant of Two Masters it's a really good show. So the tech side of Commedia dell'arte is just as much, it requires just as much as the acting side, right? You have to be on your cues, right? So for Commedia style acting, we use live sound. So our tech crew is working really super duper hard to get that done. So they use everything, literally everything live. There's no technology whatsoever involved in this process. It's all banging on stuff, ringing stuff, ring-a-ling, whoop-de-loop. It's crazy, okay? It's all live sound. That's what I love about Commedia dell'arte. How did Commedia make me a better actor? Okay, so like I said, Commedia is the basis for our theater. Commedia is really what we start off with the beginning of the year. We start off doing Commedia, and our director goes ahead and be like, So this is the basis of our theater. If you can do commedia, you can do anything. And that is so true to me. I believe that if you can do commedia, you can do anything, because it requires so much of you that if you start off with this type of acting that requires so much, you can do anything. You really can. So another thing that commedia involves is masks. So we literally have these masks that are individual to each character. Each character has their own separate mask. Every character puts this mask on. And so what the mask does is the mask forces all your emotion from your face to move down through your body. So everything that you were going to do with your face, you have to now do through your body. So it's literally crazy. You're all over the place, hop, skip, jumping, doing all type of stuff. One thing I did like that we did during this process was we brought alumni and alumnae back to go ahead and show us their characters that they did in the past. Commedia is really a tradition here at Crosby High School. So we brought them back, and they guided us through the process and just gave us all their notes and all their tips and tricks that they used to get through the show. And they just gave us everything we needed to learn about the art. Other characters that I worked with a lot of different characters. Dr. Lombardi, Beatrice, Pantalone. I played a lot of those characters too. So not only did I play Trofadino, I played Pantalone in a show called the Tale of Two Kings or something. Two Kings, it's called Two Kings. So I played Pantalone. So one thing about Commedia is, although every character in the show requires such a high energy, literally every character requires an energy bar that is so high and a physical level that is so high, they're still different. And that's the hard part about Commedia. You have to find your individual character and how she acts, or how he acts, and how he fits with the entire ensemble, while keeping that same level of energy that everybody has. One thing I liked about Commedia that I really, really loved is the physical movements, because I am a dancer, so I love to move around all the time, doing flips, cartwheels all the time. It really brings the show to life. You throw some color into the show, really brings the show to life. Physical movements are I just love being physical. One thing I did not like, let me tell you, I hated the mask. They're just covering your face. They're like this. And if you can't project while you have these masks on, it's really hard. I just hate it. I want people to see my face, you know? So I hate the mask. I really do. But I will admit, they do make you better. They work. The masks work. They work. So guys, that's really all about Commedia that I'm going to talk to you about today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you get to do a Commedia show sometime in your life. They're really fun. So thank you guys. Have a good day.
Hi, my name is Joseph Blanchard. I am a senior, and I am the stage manager and the lead designer for the Crosby Theater. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about stage management and the technical perspective, and the perspective from a technical theater student working on a Commedia show. The biggest technical element in Commedia is live sound. So percussion instruments that correspond with the characters and their movements and their gestures, and when someone gets hit, a drum beat or a slapstick, or when someone falls over a slide or a block or something like that. Those are all really important to the show, because that is one of the main elements in Commedia, is the live sound element. So live sound is super important, and if you ever get a chance to work on live sound for Commedia, I really recommend it, because you learn a lot from it the first few times, and it's really cool when you're able to get into the rhythm of it and really understand the fundamentals of it, and then you can grow on what you know and kind of start incorporating your own style into it while keeping it the authentic Commedia style, but really learning how to move with it and really feel comfortable doing it is really cool. For lights, if you're going to do it as a main stage show like this one here, this is our one I play from 2018, I believe. There's a lot you can do with lights, as you can see. So we have these lights on the cyc that are just a really beautiful spread of color, and then we have your normal area lights. Something really cool you could do with lights is correspond them with your asides. So an aside is whenever a character is speaking directly to you, to the audience, and breaking the fourth wall, and the other characters can't hear them. And something that you could do with that is during an aside, there's a slide whistle. We always use a slide whistle to break into the aside. The lights can spot on them and really dim out everywhere else. And you get this really cool picture of your main character highlighted, everyone else kind of dimmed out, and then those big, beautiful colors on the psych there that really pop out whenever you have an aside. That was something that I really was proud of for that show. As a stage manager, I really like Commedia because I get to sit and watch the show, and that's my favorite part. They're so funny. But also, it's not easier, it's just different. Yeah, it takes a different skill set to manage a comedian show because you have these moving parts, lights and sound, and you can have these big scene changes or something like that. But you're also watching out for people doing flips, people doing cartwheels, getting super, physical with the show, and that can be sometimes dangerous. And so, as a stage manager, you're really watching over that sort of stuff as well, and an extra capacity that you might not in a normal play. I really love being able to just pick up the show and say, let's go do it here. Let's go do it here. You have a trunk for props, you have a trunk for sound, and you can do your show wherever. And that's really the beauty of Commedia, I think, is you can entertain somebody however you want with these silly characters. And that's really cool to me. If you are interested in doing Commedia, don't get discouraged. It can be difficult at first. You really have to get into the groove and get your mind right for Commedia and get things really ironed out for it to look really good. But it's definitely a process worth investing in because it is so much fun and super rewarding when it works out. It is something different to be proud of because it's hard. It is not easy. You can look at a 3-act musical and say that's easy compared to some Commedia because it is difficult. And whenever it works, and it's really cool.
Hi, my name is Catriona Lockhead. I am a second-year full-time college student currently pursuing a degree in chemical engineering. And so while I have not spent my last 2 years in academia around Commedia dell'arte, I have plenty of experience from my high school years, about 4 years of being around Commedia, being in Commedia shows, acting in Commedia shows, understanding how they work, how the characters interact. And it's a very fun art form. I'd like to say it's very underutilized and kind of cast away because it's one of your more traditional ways of going about theater. But it's fun. It is so much fun. My favorite thing is as straightforward and as simple as the characters may seem, it can be really difficult to get them right. The whole thing about Commedia is that it features these characters and they all act based on their stereotypes. Like they're very stereotypical. They're very easily reducible to their wants, and they're often very one-dimensional. Now, while they still, Commedia dell'arte plays still follow your traditional theater, like there's a character with a problem, every character in Commedia dell'arte, when they encounter problems and they only react upon them to benefit themselves and whatever thing that they are wanting. And it comes down to 3 things most of the time. You have your love characters, you have your food characters, and you have your money characters. And your characters, anytime you have a Commedia dell'arte show, they act only in spite, to get to their goal. So whether that's love, whether that's food, or whether that's money, that dictates everything about them, right? So you have these characters and they seem really easy, like, oh, this guy only wants food. Like, I can play that super easy, but it's not, because everything your character does is dictated by their want. So while you have these very seemingly easy characters, it's super hard for you to perfect them because, when we're acting real characters realistically, they have a multitude of wants, a multitude of needs, right? And it's more easy for us to, as humans, to act as them because, we feel the same way. We have many wants, we have many needs. And so when you get into this Commedia dell'arte mindset, you have to reduce yourself to only these few wants, or this one want, really. And it can be really tricky, right? On top of everything, most of the characters are obscured by a mask. So as actors on a traditional stage, we often divert to our faces as a way of communicating feeling, communicating emotion, right? If you're sad, you're going to cry. If you are happy, you're going to smile on stage, right? And when you have these masks that cover, 3/4 or even your full face, it's really hard to do that. So you have to divert to extreme body movements, and it really pushes you as an actor to have to, how am I going to convey sadness without crying? How am I going to convey anger without like being able to scrunch my face up? You have to divert to extreme body movements, your body as your tool rather than your face, right? And in this, you create really fun dynamics, right? You have these characters battling, these love characters battling with this character who wants to get them out of the way because he wants his money. And then we have this Joker character who only wants food. It creates a really interesting dynamic that we don't ever get to see in real life. We see it a little bit, but everything in it is so, like in Commedia, it's so overly dramatized and it's so fun. It's really and truly, it pushes you as an actor to portray this want, this need that you have, right? And I think especially high school actors can learn from it, and it can be like a really great teaching strategy because you get this actor on stage and he or she always uses her face. You can't communicate like emotion just using your face. You have to put your whole body into it, otherwise it's not believable. And I think using commedia dell'arte and using these really extreme tropes makes a better actor in the end because you have to divert to something that you wouldn't normally do to get your point across. Otherwise, your audience can't tell. So, to make a long and short of it, I guess, Commedia dell'arte is very fun. Seems very easy. It's very easy to mess up. You can fall into like trying to make your character more realistic, but that's the whole thing. Like these characters aren't realistic. These characters aren't people that we see. We see bits and pieces of them in our bosses or in our coworkers, but you don't see them in real life. So I feel like that's where a lot of young actors struggle to make their characters like come to life because they're not realistic. Um, but at the end of the day, if you just keep going back, okay, I've figured out my character's want, I know what my character wants, right? You just keep diverting to that, and you just let that dictate your emotions. You let that dictate the way you move. You let that dictate your interactions with other characters, right? And it's a very fun experience. Commedia dell'arte shows are high energy, fast paced, and I feel like any actor, especially any new actor thrown into that, you have to act very fast. You have to act. There's a certain timing to commedia dell'arte shows, and if you don't get that right, like all your jokes will flop, right? And comedy in itself is really hard to get a grip on. I feel like as a starting actor, so using commedia dell'arte in the classroom, in the teaching space, using it to like develop your actors, I think is a wonderful strategy because in our like typical dramedies or our typical dramas even, you don't get to interact with characters like that. You don't get to explore your emotions and explore a character so in depth because they have all these facets, right? Our commedia dell'arte characters don't. And that's why I think it is a very fun tool. And I think that in the future, I would love to see more commedia dell'arte, like just in general, like on the stage, because I think for the actors and the viewers involved, it is a great experience. And it's not something like anything else that you could ever see on stage.
There you go. Point of view from the students. I hope that this was informative, or at least entices you to look up Commedia and to do some more research, or to get interested in talking to your director about doing a Commedia show. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to email me at rblanchard@crosbyisd.org. That's RBLANCHARD at crosbyisd.org. And I would love to help or give any kind of suggestions for doing Commedia. It's fun. There's a lot of things, and and I really do hope that Commedia dell'arte keeps on going. It's one of those things. I mean, everybody loves Shakespeare, and Shakespeare will never die. But I always just hope that Commedia never dies because there's so much fun in life and just love. I mean, it's just. Ugh, I hope it just keeps on. So yeah, and that's it. So God bless all of y'all, and I hope that my prayers and thoughts are for anyone dealing with the pandemic. We all are, but any families out there. But I wish y'all well, and thank y'all very much, and have a good day.